Joining us on the Kelly Alexander Show is Emmy Award-winning actor Eric Braeden, who has starred as business mogul Victor Newman on the #1 daytime drama The Young and The Restless for 37 years. Eric has recently written the story of his life in a book called I'll Be Damned, and we're thrilled to have him back on the show. Eric, welcome to the Kelly Alexander Show.
Thank you, Kelly. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm so happy to have you on our show again. And one thing I was surprised to find out when I read the book was how much you actually devoted to your childhood in Germany and the importance of Germany in general in your life. Did you intend for the book to focus on your homeland, or did it just sort of end up being that way?
No, you obviously start with your childhood and your early years experience. It goes in chronological progression. So inevitably, one talked about that, yes.
You talk about becoming, Eric Braeden in the book, making that decision to change your name. After all these years being professionally known as Eric Braeden, have Eric and Hans become one, or is there still a difference?
No, good question. I separate those, but it's, to me, obviously I'm one and the same person. That name change came out when I did a film called Colossus in 1968 at Universal Studios, and Lou Wasserman, the then president of Universal, and then the most powerful man in Hollywood, said that he wanted me to star in this picture, but no one with a German name would star in an American picture. So then, with enormous difficulty, did I finally decide to change my name.
And have you ever regretted it, Eric, or are you...
No, I have not. I understand it.
Other parts in the book that sort of stood out to me was your obvious respect and love and admiration for your own son, Christian. I know sometimes fathers and sons don't get along in life, but it seems like you and Christian really do. Why is it that you think you guys have sort of not gone down that path of maybe not getting along, but you seem like you're really great friends as well as you being his dad?
Well, I think most fathers make the mistake, not most fathers, but a lot of fathers make the mistake of letting their sons grow up with a mythical image of their dads. And I made sure from the very beginning that he had a real sense of who his father was and is by playing sports with him and doing everything with him. But we played a lot of sports, we competed, and I allowed that competition to take its natural course until he beat the crap out of me in boxing, and beat me in tennis, and beat me in lifting weights, etc. So, in other words, a lot of fathers who have inferiority complexes rather have their sons grow up with images of a mythical figure. I don't believe in that. There you are. Therefore, we have grown up with a mutual respect.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in the book, that you dedicated the book to your grandchildren. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, who else would I dedicate it to? Who else would I dedicate it to? They're old enough to read it. They might find it interesting.
You mentioned in the book that when you first became Victor Newman, you were sort of taken aback by the popularity of the character, and that sometimes it was a bit overwhelming at personal appearances in the beginning. When did you fully embrace the popularity of Victor and that you brought so much joy and entertainment to your fans across the country and across the world?
I would say that's a very good question, because I was not comfortable with all that at the beginning because it seemed incommensurate with what I was doing. After a few of those appearances, I would say I began to realize that, why fight it? It is what it is. You make people happy with what you do, and therein lies a raison d'être.
And it's funny, I follow you on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook, and it seems like you really enjoy being able to reach out to your fans. What has it been like, having these tools for you? Because I remember, years ago, we would have to have written you a letter to CBS Television, not sure if you'd ever have gotten it.
Right. Well, it took me a while to get used to it. I didn't know what the hell Twitter was or Facebook, any of that stuff. It took me a while, and a very close friend of mine began to introduce me to it. So otherwise, I would not have known what you and I are speaking about right now. But now I've embraced it. It's extraordinary. I mean, it is just extraordinary. I can, with, a few type words and push of a button, reach people all over the world. It's extraordinary. I mean, extraordinary when you think about it. And who, of course, is abusing it is the guy who's sitting in the White House. But that's a different matter. I have embraced it now, yes.
Does it sort of tickle you pink when you do get messages from your fans? Because I can only imagine, I know how much I love watching you on screen, and so I can only imagine, so many people wanting to share their love of you and the character by sending you a message through Twitter or Facebook.
Look, I have to be very honest with you. When I sit in quieter moments and by myself and read these messages, I get touched. It's touching. Once you get over the fact that it's also a little bit strange, it isn't. I mean, I watch television. I watch sports. If my favorite show is Seinfeld, that doesn't mean that I'm going to tweet. But I understand how one is sort of taken aback by meeting someone that you have watched for years on TV. It is disorienting, to put it mildly.
And I always wanted to get your opinion on how some people seem to have derogatory comments about daytime in general. I know that a lot of people think it's only about film or evening television, but I know that you guys are workhorses and you do so much great television in a short amount of time with a very limited budget. So what's your take on people who still might look down upon what you guys do on The Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives in General Hospital?
To hell with them. I don't know. I mean, I'm not concerned with them. I understand it, but they don't concern me anymore. If only they knew. I can't speak of the other soaps. I don't watch them. I don't know them. I have no idea. But I can only tell you about ours. It's been number one for over 30 years now. That the work is extremely hard. And I mean, I look at some of the crews. Sometimes they sleepwalk through the day because they usually finish working at 2:30 the morning before, and we're back here at 6:30. I mean, that happens very often. The more the big corporations suck profits out of these shows, the harder people work. And we think about it for a moment. To put this in perspective, on a film like Titanic, they film maybe 2 pages a day, if that, right? Sometimes 3, who knows? Nighttime television does between 8 and 12 pages a day. We now shoot at least 100, most of the time 120 pages a day. Put that in perspective. Then you realize that this is the hardest work there is in this town for an actor. It goes on and on and on. So I admire the writers, I admire the crew who work their asses off, and I admire my fellow actors who commit as much dialogue to memory as they do, and usually have 1 or 2 takes. That's also unheard of. So do I personally watch a lot of films or TV? No, I don't. I'm not saying that proudly. I'm sometimes regret it, but I'm too busy. I watch CNN. I watch some PBS shows, public television shows, and I watch sports. Mostly boxing or football in the football season, some basketball only during the playoffs, a lot of soccer, tennis, and then I watch the UFC. And I'm a huge admirer of one of your fellow Canadians, Georges St. Pierre. I think he's one of the supreme athletes in the world, and I mean that. He is not only an extraordinary fighter, but he's a great athlete. If you have been in athletics, as I have been all my life, you can see that man has enormous vertical jump, enormous tendon strength. It's not only muscle strength, but tendon strength that allows you to be like a trampoline practically. That guy's unbelievable. He really is. I have enormous admiration for him.
Throughout the years on Young and the Restless, oftentimes when we see Victor working out, it's always boxing. Was that something that the writers incorporated from Eric's life into the show? Like, was that a request from you?
I asked them to incorporate them into the show because they had nothing more than some shirtless guy there standing and doing bicep curls. I mean, how boring can it get? Do the real stuff.
Do you still enjoy doing those scenes, Eric? Because I just saw one, I think, a week or so back on TV with you and Joshua Moore, and it was great to see you sort of still hitting the bag.
Yes, I do. I do. Yes, I do. I mean, I've always been an advocate of bringing as much reality into a scene as possible.
After all these years of playing Victor Newman, how much of Eric Braeden is in Victor and vice versa?
I don't really know. I mean, there are certain things that Victor Newman does that I would not ever entertain. In other words, if Nicky had if I had been married to a woman who I know goes out with my nemesis or whatever, I would have said, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Felicia. Do you understand?
Yes.
It's. Are you kidding? I would have tolerated that maybe once. Nonsense. But without conflict, you have no drama. So you need to create that, and that's what the writers do and do very well. Am I, would I pit my children one against the other? No, I would not. Am I that manipulative? No, I'm not. Doesn't interest me. So a lot of things would be very different and are very different. Yet, when it comes to an emotional reservoir of that I tap into of anger, you bet it's there. That's me. Okay, or certain emotional scenes where you get very touched by something, that's me. And so it's as an actor, I think the most important quality to have, I think, as an actor is empathy. In other words, the ability to envision, to be in someone else's shoes. When you really do that, you begin to understand a lot of things. Most of us, we close ourselves off of that imagination. Okay, when you watch certain people and you say, "My God, what would it really be like to be in that person's shoes?" You begin to have empathy, and that is what actors have to have, along with a lot of, I think, anger. I really do. There have to be. I think most good actors have that. Something happened in their childhood or whatever that made them pissed off, and I have that plenty. So there you are.
Your relationship with Melody Thomas Scott, obviously on the air, you guys are a power couple. You're still a power couple after all these decades together. Do you still just love being in scenes with her? Because we, as your fans and as Young and the Restless viewers, it's still there, the magic, and we're so happy that you guys are still, doing what you do as Victor and Nikki.
Right, but the point is they cannot drive that too far. The writers, where they had some scenes a few weeks ago, or whatever, that I said, wait a minute, you're crossing a threshold now from which I may not come back, will not want to come back. It's in other words, when Nikki tells Victor he's no longer head of this family, that he has to move out of the house. Are you kidding me? Well, what do you think I would do to someone who did that to me in real life? Are you serious? It's, in other words, one has to be careful in not crossing certain thresholds, okay? Because then it doesn't seem credible when you come back from that.
Right.
And I asked them, I said, I don't want to go back to her for a while. Stuff has to happen otherwise none of this means anything. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You don't tell me I have to move out of my house. You kidding me? It's ridiculous. I personally wouldn't look at her again. That's not Victor Newman. But you need to but have to be careful not to cross a certain threshold, because then you feel there's no loyalty at all. Why the hell would I come back to her? That's the kind of stuff that pisses me off when I read it, and I say, wait a minute, what's this? Ridiculous.
With the passing of Jeanne Cooper a few years ago, obviously all of us fans were, again, so devastated by her loss, and we can only imagine what it was like for you, her friends and colleagues. Was it difficult to move forward after her passing? And did you also think the show did a great job with the tribute episode that you did, where you guys actually got to come on as yourselves and talk about her? Because I know I really appreciated the episode. We love Jeanne, and I was very fond of her, and we get along very well. And yes, I think the show did a good job when they did the tribute to her. She was a beloved character. I loved working with her. She and I had more fun working together than we were laughing all the time. And she was a character. Jeanne was a trip. I loved her. But this business is so voracious. The appetite for the show is so voracious that you need to get over it quickly in order to churn out more stuff. This is endless. Imagine that. Imagine writing and producing this thing, in my case, for 37 years now. I mean, it's just extraordinary. I have the deepest respect for writers, some of whom burn out after a while, understandably so, because they need to really deal with it in great detail, So
the producers, the crew. I mean, my God Almighty, there's so many hardworking people here. And so, yes, but does one think about Jeanne? Of course. You know, you can't help it. Primarily those of us who had worked with her. There are a lot of new people on the show who'd never worked with her, so that's a different story. But do I remember her? You bet, I always will.
I did want to get your take as well. You know, back in the 90s, there was over 15 daytime dramas on U.S. television. Now it's down to 4. Do you ever think about the genre continuing, like in decades to come? Do you think it will always have a place on daytime television?
You know, Kelly, if I had that crystal ball, if I could, I have no idea. I don't know how long it will last. I really don't. We were extended for another 3 years, which is wonderful. It's probably almost unheard of in the business these days, and so I'm very grateful. And we keep on doing what we're doing. But do I see a future for soaps? I think there's always a need for storytelling. You know, that has been the case since time immemorial, since the Greeks and Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey. I mean, and there used to be an oral tradition of telling stories. In some societies it still is, but the written word has been around for a few thousand years, so it has always been thus. And I think when networks think they can do without that storytelling, one calls it derisively soaps, because some big company that sold soap sponsored it. It's nonsense. It's daytime drama. How long will that be around? I think it'll go through ups and downs. It'll come back again in one form or another. People like to be part of stories. It gives life a sense of continuity. And it gives you, as a viewer or as a reader of stories, a sense of going outside yourself and living the life of others for a while. And hence, you know, divert attention away from your own problems. And so I think stories will always be around, always have been around.
Before I let you go, Eric, I just wanted to know if you had any message for your fans, you know, up here in Canada who love you so much and really enjoy watching on the show, because I know I can speak, I think, for some people saying we hope you're not going anywhere. We love seeing you as Victor on The Young and the Restless.
Well, that's very kind of you, and I have no intention of going anywhere. And I've always loved visiting Canada, to be honest with you. I think you people up there are very thoughtful, very nice people, and I've always felt that. I've loved going to Canada, but I've not gone enough times to French Canada. And I'd love to. I visited Montreal once, enjoyed it enormously. Would love to see Quebec City, and so anytime you have a good invitation, I'll be there.
I appreciate that. I will be happy to have you up here, that's for sure, because there's lots of great restaurants I'm sure you'd love to try.
Yes.
Eric, thank you so much for this. And again, on behalf of all your fans, it's just so great to have you on the show. And thank you so much for spending time with us. It's truly an honor.
It's my pleasure. All right?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.